Hi guys, in this video we're going to see an example of how to do completing the square. I'm not going to show in this video the motivation for it or how we know it works. We're just going to see an example of how to do it. So I have this quadratic equation here. We know it's quadratic because we have an x raised to the second power and nothing higher, no higher power. And we would want to do completing the square because we have this 3 here and we have this 6 here. And we know that normally when you want to factor quadratic equations, you look for two numbers that would multiply to the constant and which would add to this number, this coefficient on the cross term. What is a cross term? If you're wondering, it is the term which has an x raised to the first power. We never write the first power. It's just implied that it's there, but if you just see an x by itself without any exponent, that means it's raised to the first power. So anyways, it's hard to think of any numbers that would multiply to 3 but add to 6. And so to help us solve this, we might want to do completing the square. Now in this case, we're not trying to solve anything necessarily because this is just y equals, but sometimes you have this guy equal to 0 or something and then you're trying to solve for it. Anyways, how to do completing the square? Well, we take the cross term, we start with the cross term, and we specifically look at the number multiplying x, the coefficient. And what we want to do is we want to divide that number by 2. So we'll go here and do this off to the side. So we're going to take the 6. We're going to divide it by 2. We're going to get that answer, but what we are then going to do after evaluating that is we're going to take that whole thing and we're going to square the answer. And notice if we do this, 6 over 2 would give us a 3. And then we're going to square the 3 and we will get a 9. And we're going to do something with that 9. We are going to take the original equation and we're going to make a little bit of space here. So let me actually take the constant here, the 3. I'm going to move it over a bit. And we're going to do something sneaky looking here. Technically, we're going to add nothing to this equation. But at first, it's not going to look like that. Because what I am going to add is I'm going to add a 9 right here. So you might say, well, that's definitely not adding nothing. Well, if we take away 9 right after that, then overall, 9 minus 9 is 0. Overall, we've added 0. And that 3 is still there. We need to make sure we are putting a plus sign there to say that 3 is still in the equation. We're still adding it. It's a little wonky. Let me move the 3 up here. Okay. So after you take your, what I call, no one else calls it this probably, is the special term. After you add in your special term and then subtract it, what you want to do is put some parentheses around the x squared all the way to the end of the term that you added. So that 9 there, we're going to put parentheses there. Okay, next, what you're going to do is actually condense this quadratic part down into something that looks like this. It's going to be an x in parentheses. It's going to be a plus or minus. It kind of depends. We'll talk about what it depends on. Some number here, all being squared. Okay, we need to figure out what that number is. Well, it's actually really easy. The number that you put in here, and whether or not you add it or subtract it, is just the result you get when you take that cross term and you divide it by 2. So in this case, that 6 over 2 gives us a 3. And that is what we're going to put right there. Now, is it plus or minus? It all depends on what the number we got out was. If it's a positive number, we plus. If it's a negative number, we subtract. In this case, it's a positive 3. So we say it's x plus 3. And there we go. X plus 3 all squared. That is equivalent to this up here. It's just been condensed down. So we call this the expanded form, the expanded version of it. And this is what it condenses down into. If you're curious, you can FOIL this out. You can actually do x plus 3 times x plus 3 and FOIL it out, and you will see that, in fact, it does give you this. We're not done, though, because we cannot forget about all the stuff outside of parentheses. What do we do with it? We just simply simplify it. So we have a negative 9 plus 3. We do that math. What is negative 9 plus 3? It's minus 6 here. And we're done. That's completing the square. So we started with this, and we ended with this. Those two things might look very different, those two equations, but in fact, they are exactly equivalent. We might want to have it in this form for one reason, one purpose, and we might want to have it in this form for some other purpose. We'll talk about those in another video. For right now, that's just how you do completing the square. All right, I will do another video with a more complicated example in the future. Thanks.